It's now the time of the year again. The start of the new year is a natural time to think about your current behaviors, what you may want to do differently, and your goals for the upcoming year. It is common practice to create New Year's resolutions, yet are they actually helpful? Some psychologists are urging those with resolutions to set realistic ones to avoid the disappointment of not achieving them. And to help you stick to your goals and resolutions for 2025, we joined virtually by clinical psychologist Dr Khosi Jiyane. A very good morning to you, Dr Jiyane. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Morning Live and a Happy New Year to you.
Good morning, thank you, and a Happy New Year to you and to the audiences out there.
Indeed, thank you so much. Now, with the New Year upon us, as we think of New Year's resolutions, we naturally reflect on how we can better ourselves and just contemplate changes to make that happen. Does it help that society pushes us to do just that?
Yes and no. On the one hand, so what resolutions talk to is the fact that as human beings, we don't just want to survive, we want to thrive, we want to be the best of ourselves. And so resolutions are about saying we need to stop at some point, and the year gives us a timeline, a benchmark within which we can pace ourselves and stop and reflect on the past, what we have done. As it is January, the Greek god of Janus says it's about two-headed, looking backwards and also casting our minds forward in terms of what we anticipate us to do and achieve in the upcoming year. So on the one hand, it helps because as human beings, we are not just a solo being. We are part of a choir, a social space,
sure,
and socially important other people. So people will always impact whether we achieve or not achieve those goals or resolutions that we set for ourselves, but also people can put you under pressure. So it's important to be centered in your own resolutions while also recognizing that there are dynamics that include people and things that may impact our ability to achieve or not achieve everything that we set up, but we want to set up an infrastructure that gives you the best chance of achieving your resolutions.
And while at that point, what is it about January the 1st that makes us resolve to break those bad habits once and for all?
Yeah, again, it is that life gives us a timeline. Otherwise, it just becomes one long experience that has no frame. So seasons of life give us a seasonality of life. And therefore, the first is a fresh start, even though actually every day life gives us an opportunity to begin again. But the year kind of gives us a time frame within which we can set milestones that we can work towards as the year progresses so that we get to another similar time and can look back and say, did I achieve this? What still remains undone?
And why are New Year's resolutions infamous for being abandoned by the middle of January?
Because I guess they start off with an energy, the hype, that's on the screen. There's all the festivity, the merriment of it, which is important because that's the energy that we need to galvanize us towards action. However, we need to also then be grounded. We need to move from the clouds, to the ground. And I think the contributions that you read earlier on are an important starting point for how we can concretize those things. So, for example, the one person says they want to stop procrastination. It's nice. It's a nice sentiment. But what does it mean? If you don't clarify, if you're vague about your resolutions, your results will be vague. What does procrastination mean? You need to sit yourself down and take this seriously. Sit yourself down and say, in what ways have I been procrastinating? What have I done or not done? And be able to say to yourself, what does it mean to not procrastinate? It means it's a verb. You need to translate things into action because the only way you're going to get out of procrastination is by taking actions. So in what ways do you need to take more actions than you have? And be able to say, okay, on a daily basis, what do I need to achieve? What do I need to do in order to achieve that? And how long do I need to work at it for it to be a meaningful progress towards that result that you want. So don't be vague. Instead of saying more money, work harder, what does that mean? More money is how much more? And then what are the steps that you need to put in place to get to that figure? It has to be specific. Otherwise, it's just going to fizzle out because you have nothing really that you're working towards.
Right. Now, from a psychological viewpoint, do you think the tradition of setting New Year's resolutions is beneficial for our mental well-being, or is it simply creating unnecessary stress and pressure?
I think it is beneficial because, one of the famous psychologists, Viktor Frankl, said the last thing that the human mind can tolerate is meaninglessness. As human beings, we are driven by a sense of purpose. We want to be better, to do better, to have better. We don't just want to survive, we want to thrive and be our best selves. And therefore, resolutions give us that sense of focus. So it's about resolving what we want to become, what we want to do, and what we want to have. So therefore, they put us in a frame of mind rather than just kind of going with the flow, and having a sense of nothing really matters. It is about that my life matters, and therefore what I do matters, because there are certain outcomes that I do want to achieve rather than just to just be a person that exists. We want to live, and living is about being intentional about the things that we do and what we want to achieve at the end of it all.
Yeah, still on the issue of our mental well-being, is there perhaps a strategy that will ensure that you don't throw away your aspirations in February in order to prioritize our mental health during this time as we strive to achieve our resolution goals?
Yes, absolutely. Again, it is about being intentional rather than just whimsical about them. It is about sitting down and setting down a framework, because human behavior is really driven by two fundamentals. It's the motivation, which tends to be what we have now. We are all kind of in good spirit, high-spirited about it, which is the motivation. But there also needs to be matched with ability. So what do I need to do? And what am I able to do? What do I have to take the necessary actions to move towards that? And we're also not, again, just isolated beings. How do other people feature in that picture? Can you draw on the expertise and the support, the motivation and enablement of other people to keep you on track? And also, what are the other non-human factors that you can bring to bear? We have all this technology. Use it to achieve what you set out for yourself, rather than just passive scrolling and being dragged into social media and doing things that don't matter. Use the technology that we have, and these are all resources that we have at our disposal to make sure that we move purposefully towards what we want to achieve.
Now, Dr. Jiyane, what advice would you have for someone who feels perhaps so overwhelmed by the prospect of setting New Year's resolutions? I mean, how can they start small to build confidence?
Right. It is about priorities. You need to be clear about what is the most significant thing you want to achieve in your life. And perhaps the past is an important point of reference to say, how do I look back on how I lived my life in 2024? Are the things that I could have done better, differently? And therefore, what will be the priority areas of my life? You don't want to have a plate running over so that you feel overwhelmed and don't even know where to start. It's about prioritizing, and it's about being specific about what is it that you want and why you want it is the most important thing as well, because then that'll determine how invested you are in achieving it. If it's not something that you care about, why put it in your resolutions? But it's about putting those things that matter to you, that will give yourself a life, a sense of meaningfulness and contentment, and a sense of progress about yourself that will make you feel good. So don't just, take anything and everything and pile it on, because then you won't even know where to begin. But it's about perhaps for the next 3 months, what do I want to do? What do I want to achieve for the next 3 months, rather than just a long-term plan that feels impossible to achieve at the end of it all?
All right, Dr. Jiyane, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I certainly wish and hope that there is a way of determining whether, New Year's resolutions is unrealistic or even ambitious. And perhaps there could be telltale signs that we are setting ourselves up for failure by making those unrealistic New Year's resolutions. Thank you so much for joining us and for your insights.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. That was Dr. Khosi Jiyane, a clinical psychologist, speaking to us about how to make New Year's resolutions stick.